Alright guys, today we're going to be replacing the wheel bearings on a 1982 Datsun 280CX Turbo. So you can see I've already gotten started on this side, just so I can show y'all in between the process, because my hands are about to get real messy with the grease. Once you start, you'll remove the wheel. This side is still untouched. All I've done was crack the dust cap off, crack it loose, and that's it. But this is how you would start, minus the wheel spacer, which I have for my wheels. So let me run through a little step by step. First thing you're gonna want to do is loosen up the bolts that hold the caliper in place. There should be back here. Let's see if I can get a shot of him. There's one, and the other one is right under there. Now those are 17 mil sockets. Crack them loose. Move the caliper out of the way. Once you do that, take the cap off, remove the cotter pin, pull it out. You bend the back, you pull it out. I recommend replacing them because they'll get brittle after a while, bending them back and forth. Remove the cap, and then there will be this nut that holds the assembly in place. This should be 27 mil nut. Should be able to get it with your 27 mil socket that you use for all the big stuff in this car, pretty much. Now, once you have it all off, once you have the nut off, the whole caliper should just slide right out. Now, in doing so, I'll show you on this side. It'll just leave the shaft from the assembly, separate. Now here's the fun part, which I was dealing with, which I haven't started filming with because of this. The bearing comes in two pieces. This is the rear bearing. You'll see, we'll look over here, part that actually holds the bearing in place, and then the other part that's still in here, which is not so fun to get out. Now, I've already removed it from this side, but let's see if I can get you a better lighting in there. It was not fun. The hub assembly has two windows, for which I recommend cleaning up all of the grease to make your life easier, because otherwise you're gonna have hell trying to find them. It has two windows specifically for the purpose of pushing the outer part of the bearing out. Now this is the one I've already taken off. As you see, it comes in two pieces. This is the part that's very difficult to get out. Doesn't want to seem to slide right out like it should. And this is the bearing that I am replacing. Now, I don't know if you can hear, but it's making horrible grinding noise, and it was starting to get real bad while driving. Now, I'm not sure if you can see all the flake in the grease that I've taken out. That is all metal from the bearings basically eating themselves as I drove. Now that will result in a bearing failure and potentially a wheel coming off, depending on how bad it fails. Okay. Now to get the backside off, I used the center punches that I have, just happen to have laying around. They were long enough for me to get in there, hit them with a hammer. Don't use a screwdriver if you don't have to. We'll just break it. So that's why I use these. Tap them on each side, Little by little, it will start coming off. And once you do that, you'll have, like up here, a clean surface to start with to put the new bearing on. Now, before you even think about putting the new bearing on, you have to pack it with grease. This is just some random grease that I have that I'm probably going to put on the shaft, but I've got an actual bearing, universal bearing packer that I'm going to use to pack the bearing. I recommend using the tool instead of trying to do it by hand, because it just gets real messy if you try to do it by hand. But do it however you feel most comfortable. Just make sure you have plenty of grease in there. You don't want to have too little, or else you'll cause an early failure. Now, I'm going to continue. I'm going to need both hands, so I'll just pause this for now and show you all the steps as I go along putting this side back together. It's a very straightforward process. Shouldn't take you very long to do, aside from actually removing the back side of the bearing out of the hub. That was so far the hardest part. Now, I will be right back. Alright, I've gotten the other side out, and I've cleaned the inside of the hub assembly all the way off. I don't want any of the old grease to stay in there, especially with the old shavings that I was holding on to, so I wanted to clean up everything. Leave no residue inside before packing it with new grease. Now, I've already packed my bearing with my tool. I'm going to apply a coat of grease, fresh grease, all over the inside of this and on the shaft as well. Now, I'll take another clip as I start putting it back together, but it is a very straightforward process from here on. It's just a matter of pushing the new bearings in, applying lube, well, grease, and bolting it back together. Fairly simple, very easy. I'll get clips along the way. Also, very important, before I forget to mention, get a new seal. Replace the seal along with everything. The seal will sit on the back, on top of the bearing. Just make sure you grab a new one. Do not reuse the old one. Mine's over there, and it was certainly damaged on removal. Not saying you can't remove it without damaging, but strongly recommend getting a new one. Alright, here we have new bearings in place. I'm gonna pack a little more grease on this side around the edges. Once I put it back up onto the shaft, hold it with my index as I showed the back side. All packed full of grease, new seal on. I'm gonna go on the hub now as soon as I put some grease on it. Alrighty. Now, putting grease on this. Don't skimp out, but do clean off all of the old one. Make sure you have a very clean new surface. Well, not new, but clean, smooth surface for the new bearings going in place. Now, that's all the old grease out. I'm gonna use this high temp grease to just slather on there. It will be fine. any kind of grease, as long as, any brand I should say, as long as it is high temp, specifically designed for wheel bearings, hub assemblies, brakes. Make sure you ask for the correct one, don't just get any random one when doing this. Alrighty, now once you have it done, just shove the whole rotor and hub assembly in. Make sure you rock it about, because with the new grease it might give you a little bit of issue sliding it in. But once you shove it in, make sure you have enough threads exposed so you can tighten the nut. Once it's ready to go in, now we're going to put this cap on top of the bearing, which has got a little keyhole. If you can see, sorry about the blurriness. If you can see, this cap has a guide that will go into that key slot to hold the inside of the outer bearing in place. And this is what the nut is supposed to hold into. Okay, almost done. I'll give you a shot of it put together now. Alright, here's a shot of it all fully assembled. All we gotta do is bolt on the caliper, 2 bolts, slide it over the rotor. But before that, what I'm going to do, much better, no grinding noises, rotates freely, not much resistance. What I'm going to do is just, since I've been handling a lot of grease and now there's a lot of grease on the rotor, I'm gonna hit it with some good old brake clean. And that should just about do it for this side. I'll repeat the process on the other side and take the car out for a test drive, but that's all there is to it. Not much, not rocket science. Anybody can do it. Hope this video helps somebody.